Welcome back to a brand new episode of Yuya. I'm really excited to share today's episode with you. This is the episode that I thought we'd be doing yesterday, but today is today. So today's episode is called A Beautiful Jigsaw. Now the inspiration for this, it's a reminder because as I started to share with you a couple of days ago, over the next few episodes, I'm going to be sharing bits of my story by way of encouragement for you and to see how different pieces fit together. But this episode really helps to paint the picture, because what I've noticed as you take a step back at life and you look at the different things that have happened throughout life, ultimately they all fit together into what we're going to describe as a beautiful jigsaw. And yet at the same time, sometimes when you're working on a piece of the jigsaw, or when you can only see maybe the corner section, it maybe feels like you're working on a whole different picture to what you were expecting. So my example for this is fiction. So some of you know that, nearly about 5 years ago now, gosh, that's gone fast. About 5 years ago, after having niggles, every one of my frustrations, rewind slightly. One of the reasons why I'm very passionate and get quite animated at this time of the year, as we come to the end of the year and get ready for the new year, is that for many years, year after year, I get to November and December and I plan and think and what are we going to do this year? And then 12 months would go by and it still never got done. And fiction was one of those things. And as a result of that experience, what I would, if that is you and that rings true for you, two things. Thing number one, yes, you can use the power of the calendar. And if you're somebody who does feel like God is niggling to do things and has things for you to be playing with towards the end of this year as you get ready for the new year, I would invite you to the Itchy Soul playground, because we're going to do that stuff in community. But more importantly, if the calendar isn't serving you, it's time to reuse it. So one of the ladies in the playground, her new year starts in April, because it's when everything is fresh and new, and it ties in with the financial new year as well. And that serves her, and it gets her excited, and it doesn't actually matter to her that I will describe this as the last quarter of the year. It's not her last quarter. Doesn't matter, it's just semantics. So yes, the power of the calendar is amazing, and you are over the coming weeks probably going to hear me encouraging you to start thinking about how you can close out the year and get ready for the new one, even though this year has been bananas. And at the same time, if you're somebody who year after year you go, maybe you get to February, March, and you're just like, too late, forget it, might as well just give up for the year. No. Yes, we can use the power of the calendar, but actually we can start and work towards those niggles at any time of the year. And the playground is a classic example of that. I really believe that God is right now, this moment, preparing people to come and join the playground. And yet when I look around me, life is chaotic. This is the worst possible time. Leaving aside the nonsense that is 2020, the only way the playground will grow right now is because God is doing it. And I'm quite happily will state that openly and get excited about that. But if I went, no, can't do it now because it's, October, that's the wrong time, people are focusing on all these other things, that would close off so many possibilities. And so if you are somebody who gets a little bit disempowered, if that's a word, by the calendar, I just want to encourage you don't have to be ruled by it. It is there for you to rule instead. However, go back to this story of the fiction piece. So year after year, I would go, I'm going to write fiction, and I'd write it. I'd write that down on my plan, and I never would get it done until the year that I did. And 2015 was the year that I did write some fiction. I think by the end of 2017, within 2 years, I'd published 5 novels. I can't remember, I've lost count. And yet, on the face of it, when I was initially reflecting back and going, fiction, and in case anybody's wondering, at the time of recording this, I don't have any particular plans to write any more fiction. There is a book that I've started, the next one in the Charlie Diamond series, which potentially, but right now my focus really is on helping you scratch those niggles and helping you smile. And I do believe that we can do any of the things that God is calling us to do, but at the same time you can't do everything, not all at the same time. It is the recipe for burnout and frustration, and I'm here to help you thrive, and I want to lead by example. So in case someone's like, fiction, yes, there are some books and there might be some more in the future, but don't hold your breath because that's not the focus right now, at least. But so by 2017, I'd written and published, like I say, I think five novels. Yeah, 5 novels and a little goal-setting book. We've done another little sort of daily encouraging type book. There are a few little non-fiction ones in the works. And yet when I reflected on that, I was like, well, how does that actually fit into anything? Okay, if I was going to have like multiple examples of me in the world, there could be the me who is a fiction author. There could be the me who stays at home and looks after the household. There could be the me who runs the playground. And yet there isn't. There's only one me. However, I now, with the benefit of wonderful hindsight and talking to God about this stuff, can see how fiction totally plays into the picture. Because as a result of going through that process, setting goals, putting my bum in the chair and actually doing the work, and then going through the process of editing, publishing, cover design, I now have this whole other skill set which I'm now using. UEA Media is my publishing company. There will be people who come into the playground who want to write and publish books. And now, thanks to that whole wealth of experience that I've had in a different version of me, no, it was all me, but like in a different season of my life, I can now go, you want to write and publish a book? Of course I can help you. God is calling you to do this thing? Yes, I can help you. It all fits together. And sometimes it will fit together in ways that seem really quite not connected at all. So some of you might know that I'm actually a qualified teacher. I'm a primary school teacher. I haven't been in a primary school classroom, other than when I went to parents' evening with the kids, for a decade maybe slightly less than that. 8 years, 6 years, a long time. So much so, you have to, as a teacher, you have to renew your, you have to have a piece of paper that says you're part of the Teaching Council for Wales. I let that lapse years ago. And you could go, well, that's a bit daft. Why, how does you being a teacher fit into any of this? And it actually, I use my teaching skills and those naturally things that God gave me to help me be a decent teacher in other avenues. And so, for example, we have in the playground training materials, teaching. I do teach. When someone gets stuck on something, I do them a video and show them how to do that. If that's not teaching, I don't know what is. And so that's another really great example of something that logically on the face of it, I don't do anymore. And yeah, I do, just in a different way. And the same will be true for you as well. And so I want to encourage you to start thinking about those things that are niggling at you. And the other way you can do this as well is if you're somebody who feels like your life is a bit scattered. I can relate to that. I've got many different interests, and it sometimes feels a bit disjointed. I want to encourage you to sit and ideally do this with God, because that's the other piece of this as well, is that we are focusing on this piece of the jigsaw and then we get that bit, and sometimes we get that insight and see how pieces slot together, and yet it can sometimes feel like fumbling in the dark, quite candidly. But God is the artist. He's got the lid of the box and can go, well, actually there's that bit goes there and that bit goes there, and oh yeah, look at that bit, and oh look, you forgot the bit, and there's a corner piece. And so I want to encourage you to do this with God. But the other really loving, gracious piece of this, and the bit that just it was in my notes but I haven't glanced at them at all, but it's important to remind you, even when you're not actively doing life with God, He is still there loving on you and guiding you and nudging you. So the time when I did fiction, people kind of get excited about fiction. Wow, you wrote fiction with God. And I'm like, well, not directly. I mean, quite candidly, yes, I was a Christian when I wrote those novels, and yes, God was in my life, etc. But I wasn't actively doing it with Him in the way that I do now with this work that I do with the playground, for example. And yet still, God in His graciousness and His love can use all of those pieces. So there's two parts to this. I want to encourage you to do this with God. That ultimately, you're always going to hear me say that, and I make no apologies for banging on about that, because He loves you and He wants to be in relationship with you. But at the same time, take encouragement from the fact that even if there are times when you know that actually you weren't really bothered, maybe you didn't even acknowledge Him, or you knew He was there but He was an idea, a concept, He didn't give up on you and the picture and the jigsaw that you are creating together, and He can bring all those pieces together. So I'd encourage you, if you want a bit of homework, your plaything, experiment with this, play with it, ask God to help you see how those pieces fit together, and more importantly, are there things that God is niggling you towards right now? Because yes, this year has been bonkers, and at the same time, it is not over. There will be more after this, and it's time to start paying attention to those things that are niggling at you, because that's God trying to get your attention. And of course, as I've already said, if you're not in the Itchy Soul Playground and you'd like support, community, encouragement, cheerleading, I'd invite you to come and join us. uea.com/join. We moved the website around a little while ago. uea.com/join is where you can find out more and join us. In the meantime, thank you for being here. I look forward to catching up with you soon. Take care. Bye-bye.